Okay, so dear colleagues, welcome. We're really delighted to have you join this discussion on the transformative power of education in the face of climate change. Today we're going to focus on the role that technology plays in building resilience and in bringing skilling and learning opportunities to children and youth. My name is Tammi, and I lead our work on education and crisis at Global Partnership for Education. For those of you less familiar with GPE, we're the largest global fund solely dedicated to transforming education in lower income countries, and we're co-organizing the event today with UNICEF. To set the scene a bit, the COVID-19 pandemic created an urgency to expand access to digital learning solutions so that children can continue learning outside of the classroom. As countries invested in distance learning, they laid the groundwork for reimagining education and strengthening systems for future crises. When we're currently facing a future where the number of disasters driven by climate change is projected to increase, it's critical to consider what we have learned so far and how we can scale up what works. Technology can be a powerful tool to enhance the learning experience, improve access, bring personalized learning for children who traditionally face barriers. However, uneven access to connectivity risks widening existing inequities. So in this session, we're going to explore how technology, public-private partnerships, data, and evidence can be harnessed to build resilience and bring learning and skilling opportunities to all children and youth. Before I introduce our distinguished panel, I have a question for our audience. If you could just please respond by raising your hand. So who in the room, thank you, who in the room has used technology for learning at some point in their lives? That is pretty much everybody in the room. Excellent. So as you listen to the panel discussion today, I really invite you also to consider your own experiences with using technology for learning and what made that experience effective for learning, and how do we achieve that similar outcome for all children and youth. So now to introduce our esteemed panel. First we have Salha Aziz, who is a youth leader from Tanzania. She's the founder and executive director of Binti Salha Foundation. She's an STD champion and advocates for adolescent girls and young women's rights to quality education, economic freedom, and good health. We have Minister Madalitso Kambauwa Wirima, who is the Minister of Education of Malawi. Minister Wirima has been a driving force behind various initiatives aimed at promoting growth at the nexus of national development and education. She was elected Minister of Education in 2023 and has played a pivotal role in implementing policies that have led to improvements in education, including developing sustainable school infrastructure. Next, we have Robert Jenkins, who is the Director of Education and Adolescent Development at UNICEF. Rob joined UNICEF in 1995 and brings over 20 years of experience in international development and humanitarian programming in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Then we have Majed, who is an education industry advisor at Microsoft. He has been on the Microsoft education team for the last 10 years, where he works with ministries of education, education leaders, schools, and education solution providers to help them realize the full benefits of adopting technology in education. Next is Dr. Kevin Frey, who is the CEO of Generation Unlimited. As both an entrepreneur and an executive, Kevin has operated at the nexus of the private and public sectors throughout his career, spanning the education, technology, human capital, and international development spheres. Finally, we have Charles North, Deputy CEO of the Global Partnership for Education. Charles joined GPE in 2019 after serving for 32 years as a Foreign Service Officer with the U.S. Agency for International Development. So thanks everybody for being here. I want to start with you, Salha. Could you please share a little bit about your experiences on the role of education in the face of climate change and how you think technology plays a part in that?
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you so much, Ana Maria. I'm so happy to join this panel, a heavy panel, as a young people's representative. And I will go direct to the question. And from my experience, education plays a very crucial role, by the way, as it addresses and mitigate the impacts of climate change. Education also serves as a foundation for awareness, but also to foster the understanding and empowering an individual in making informed decisions. So we can see that the education is very important before any other thing. Like in anything that you want to foster, you have to consider education, whether it is from the class or it is from the street. But also we cannot deny the fact that there is no technology advancement without education. And there is no learning and education advancement in the face of climate change and crisis without technology. That's why we are discussing about technology and education. So these two things are interdependent. You cannot separate them. For example, for the past 2 years or 3 years ago, in Africa and even the world, we have faced the challenge of COVID-19. And in Africa, it was even worse when it comes to learning activities, as it impacted a lot of youth in our countries. It was so hard because of the technology level of advancement in our countries. So a lot of youth were supposed to go back home during lockdown, but also most of them will not be able to continue learning during that lockdown. So only few schools, the private schools with good technology systems in their education system, they were able to continue learning. But for this majority of students, we are not able to continue learning. It's the same happening right now when we have flooding in Tanzania, in Kenya, when we had Cyclone Freddy in Malawi. So it's something that is actually challenge education sector in our countries. So technology is very important in the face of, education is very important in the face of technology, but also we have to understand that if we want to advance our education, we really need to invest in technology. The issue is, in our countries, for example, Tanzania, we have been trying harder to go with the technology advancement. But what is happening is we are trying our best, but it goes very slowly. As we have seen in our schools, we are teaching technology, I can say computer skills. But can we all of us here imagine learning about computer, but through a blackboard, through a drawing? Like a teacher is drawing a computer, telling you this is a screen, this is a mouse, this is how you switch on, so it's something that we really need to think about and invest on, so that we can at least make a step towards advancement in our education. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Salha, and thank you so much for giving us this perspective from the classroom. Next, I'm going to turn to you, Honorable Minister. Could you please share about Malawi's experiences in developing and implementing digital learning solutions, and what, in your view, are some of the key lessons in using technology to build resilience?
Thank you very much, Rob. And thank you so much, Madam Moderator. Good afternoon to you all. My response is pretty long, but I hope you give me the indulgence to go through it so that maybe we can all learn from it. Sorry. Start. So I stand before you today with a profound sense of responsibility and urgency, recognizing the pivotal role education plays in the face of one of the most pressing challenges of our time, climate change. As we delve into the critical discourse on building resilience for education in the face of climate change, utilizing technology, I invite you to journey with me through the lens of Malawi, a nation whose story echoes the struggles and triumphs of many least developed countries, also known as LDCs, grappling with multiple problems. Malawi faces an uphill battle as a least developed country in the throes of climate change. The impact of this global challenge is not uniform. It strikes with a severity that affects our education infrastructure and access. The burden is borne by our schools, our students, our teachers, and the very fabric of our educational calendar, disrupting the smooth flow of knowledge and progress. Ladies and gentlemen, the correlation between climate change and disruptions in education is undeniable. Extreme weather events ravage our school infrastructure, displacing students and disrupting the academic journeys. Yet amid adversity, there's hope. And one of the sources of such hope is technology. Technology, ladies and gentlemen, is a formidable ally in our pursuit of resilience, and it stands as a catalyst for change. It empowers us to mitigate the impact of climate-related disasters through early warning systems. Initiatives like the innovative early warning system developed by our very own University of Malawi and utilizing mobile applications and SMS alerts serve as lifelines, enabling timely communication and evacuation planning during crises. Moreover, technology ushers us into a new era of continuous and more equitably accessible education through e-learning platforms. We have turned a new page in Malawi. New page stands for novel e-learning, for wide access, for progressive and generational education. It has 5 main programs as follows. 1, scaling up of award-winning adaptive tablet-based learning in public schools through the Building Education Foundations through Innovation and Technology, acronym BIFIT program. We invite our partners to join this success story, which is one of a kind. Number 2, establishing a free national education platform that will allow online, offline, on mobile, on air, and on TV learning. It will include the electronic continuous professional development for teachers and online and offline learning platform for upper primary and secondary, such as NotMaster. This platform will always ensure continuity of learning, including during disasters. It also includes the launching of an education radio accessible both online and on air. Number 3, expansion of building national system of community-based learning centers for secondary education, which is linked to the New Page platform, which will allow for learning to take place anywhere and anytime by people of all ages, including during emergencies. Enhancing analytical capacity of the Malawi College of Distance Education through the establishment of an EdTech hub for learning, analytics, and education technology development. And the last one, the establishment of an open university with modern pathways of learning, including with industry and multiple cohorts with uninterrupted learning and specialized science, technology, embracing artificial intelligence. However, technology's true power lies not just in innovation, but in its integration into smart infrastructure for climate resilient schools. The integration of solar-powered classrooms and sustainable building materials exemplifies our commitment to creating a future where our education institutions stand firm against the onslaught of climate change. Yet infrastructure alone is still not enough. Community engagement and capacity building are the cornerstones of our resilience. We recognize the imperative of community-based climate education programs woven together by technology, fostering awareness and resilience at the grassroots level. Partnerships with NGOs and local communities are our compass, guiding us forward. Ladies and gentlemen, our educators and administrators are at the forefront of this transformative journey. Initiatives aimed at their training and integrating technology into the curriculum are a testament of our dedication. International collaborations amplify our efforts, providing invaluable support and resources. As we navigate this terrain, policy and advocacy emerge as crucial pillars. We have begun the integration of climate resilience considerations into Malawi's national education curriculum and policies. However, our plea extends beyond borders, a call for a conducive global policy environment supporting technology-driven resilience strategies in local developed countries like ours, Malawi. In conclusion, let us remember a holistic approach in our lodestar, technology, coupled with community engagement, capacity building, and supportive global policies intertwine, forming the fabric of resilience in Malawi's education sector. Our success hinges not merely on rhetoric, but a collective action on our unwavering commitment to forge ahead, hand in hand, towards a future where education thrives amidst the challenges of climate change. Together we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, for sharing those innovative examples and also highlighting the importance of taking those policy level actions. So now turning to UNICEF, Rob, as the Director of Education, your mandate is to ensure that children are learning from anywhere at any time. How is UNICEF using a technology to achieve that goal, and what do you see as the single most critical challenge to success?
Well, thanks a lot thanks a lot for the question, and thanks for involving me. The minister's a very hard act to follow, and Salha. I really appreciate those earlier comments. I was going to say some other things, but I think I'm going to build on what was previously said, and I'll try and be brief to give some time for others, and also maybe we can have more of a discussion. So our mandate is slightly different than that. It's actually with a focus on marginalized kids. It's to ensure marginalized children have access to learning, and that's the key issue that I want to address. And the reality is technology has yet to realize its full potential to reach marginalized kids. Actually, it's another reason for growing disparities as per the data. So what we need to do is recognize the risk of growing marginalization as a result of rolling out technology and proactively address it. And when you have a leader like Her Excellency, as she was just mentioning, then that's the first key. If we have leadership committed to regionalize marginalized kids. I did just completely coincidentally have an opportunity to spend a couple days with the minister last week in Malawi in schools. And you can see when you have leadership like her and committed in translating that leadership down in classrooms, which we saw, then you have the enabling environment that's necessary. The challenge is we don't have 145 ministers of education like we have in Malawi. When you're looking at globally, the data is negative, like I mentioned. So we need to replicate ministers of education in Malawi 145 times over to have committed leadership to reach marginalized kids. And it requires huge effort because the default is growing disparities. So we need to proactively all on board to reach that. And the points that she so clearly made are the secret sauce. Linked to that, of course, is then monitoring unintended consequences, because I think we all recognize technology is powerful and it has great potential to address the learning crisis, but it needs a very fast feedback loop to know what's happening in classrooms, what's happening out of classrooms to enable kids to have access and to learn. That's also an area that we need strengthening. The data we have globally on actual learning levels or acquisition of skills is embarrassingly poor, including my own country in northern Canada. We have very little data on what our kids actually learning. We know they pass tests, but we know that doesn't also correlate to anything that's useful, other than good test taking, which it does not correlate to realizing your full potential, as we all know. So And we saw that in Malawi too, just a very quick, not only leadership to ensure, but quick feedback loops to monitor impact and unintended consequences. The last point I want to raise is, and sorry, I'm a bit I'm hoping I'm not being too dramatic, but it is emergencies and kids affected by conflict, but also climate change, as we're hearing. So we had 73 million, we, meaning all of us in this room as global citizens, were part of a world that had 73 million children out of school that were a result of, in 2023, related to conflict and humanitarian disasters, also linked to climate change. So again, now that's obviously on the far end of the spectrum on marginalization. Technology has an enormous strength, including, I'm sure my colleague is going to talk about offline versions and a partnership we have on the Learning Passport. And we have amazing tools for that as well. But that again comes back to the need to recognize how important it is for us to reach these kids, including at the time of a conflict and a crisis, and enable them to continue to learn. And just as one little scary stat there, in terms of global humanitarian support, all money that's provided to respond to emergencies, only 3% of that is to enable kids to learn. So we continue to argue for the importance of enabling kids to learn in times of crisis. Also, comes back to leadership, comes back to the need for replication. So anyways, thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob, and also for highlighting equity in this conversation. So now, as a segue, let's hear from the private sector. So Majed, you represent Microsoft, and as the world's largest software house, what do you see as Microsoft's role in ensuring the next generation has the education and skills needed to thrive? And where do you still see gaps and opportunities when you think about public-private partnerships?
Thanks, Anna Maria. So there's so much I can build on, but given the time limit, I'm going to try to focus on few key messages. So as you mentioned, as Microsoft, for us, education is a very special area where we have programs and resources and products that are only for education. So for example, we give every single student free email, free Teams, free cloud storage. And that's to actually allow students to learn anytime, anywhere, as mentioned. During COVID, we actually worked with so many countries to develop systems to allow all students to learn. I was personally involved with maybe around 10 million plus students and teachers, enabling them to learn online and during COVID. We have a great partnership with UNICEF, where we have taken our technology enabled by cloud services, and then we have the Learning Passport, which we implemented in many countries. We have hosted on it around 16,000 topics and classes, and available in 58 languages, and it's been implemented in so many countries. So along with all the technologies that we have, we keep building on that technology, and the latest trend is artificial intelligence, and I think everyone is talking about that. We even provide free AI-based tools for learning. So one example is reading progress, where the student can read a passage and then upload it to the server, and then AI can analyze how that student is reading. And then AI can tell you that which words are mispronounced, which words that were omitted, how many words per minute that student is reading. And then it could give the teacher, a graph of how that student is progressing. And then the teacher in the class, she can pick, let's say, all the students are struggling with these few words. Let me generate a new passage focusing on these words only, and then assign it to the students. So we're always innovating, we're always pushing the limits of technology. And the goal is actually to have, a personalized learning experience for every student. So, you talked about data. The more the students and teachers use the systems, the more data we have and the more intelligent we can become in responding to how the students learn best. So I hope that gives a good idea.
That's excellent. Thank you so much, Majed, for giving those examples. really great to hear. So Kevin, from Generation Unlimited's perspective, what would you like to add on how we're doing in terms of leveraging public-private partnerships around education?
I think we're making progress. I think UNICEF's partnership with Microsoft is a great example, reaching millions of young people across tens of countries. I think we can do more. I think one of the places where that public-private partnership is so important is when you talk about school-to-work transition or learning to earning. I think the private sector has a huge role to play there, because if you think about a supply-demand equation, the demand side of the equation is from the private sector. They know the skills they need. They know the jobs that are available. And there's a broken feedback loop right now. Most education systems are preparing young people for jobs of yesterday. Not even for the jobs of today, let alone the jobs of tomorrow. And that's because there are some very big barriers between the private sector and the public sector. The public sector is the supply side. They're doing all the training. And so we have to bring those two constituencies together so that the private sector can be informing what's happening in the classroom, so that as young people graduate, like Rob was saying, not just good test takers, but in fact young people with the skills they need for the economies of today and for tomorrow. So I would encourage more public-private partnership, and specifically at that interface of learning to earning, school to work.
Thank you so much, Kevin. That's a really important perspective. Thank you. So Charles, wrapping up this round with you, and I hope you could come in with a little bit of evidence. And so, could you tell us about what GPE learned about the power of technology, and particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Sure. Well, thanks for that. And it's very interesting that we're now going to bookend this for Salha and the minister talking about their experience, how they saw COVID and what it meant for technology. We moved back to GPE's view. In March of 2020, GPE mobilized $500 million in COVID response for 66 countries. And we're now beginning to see the emerging trends of what happened with the money, what worked and what didn't, based on some recent evaluations. Now, you'll recall at the onset of the pandemic, we all instantly became experts on Zoom in order to communicate and work together and so forth. Well, so it's not terribly surprising that supporting distance learning was a priority across all countries facing school closures. Almost all of the 66 countries we supported invested in some sort of distance learning, generally a mix of no-tech, low-tech, and medium to high-tech programs. A third of our grants supported low-tech solutions for distance learning like radio and TV. And nearly a third supported e-learning using tablets, mobile, or internet. But in low-income contexts, we invested more funding into solutions that required no or low technology. While the pandemic has ebbed, the demand among partner countries for education technology remains high. And so based on our experience from COVID, governments need to better assess their high-tech ambitions in light of classroom realities. Obviously, there are issues of the infrastructure, as Salha was describing. But there's also, we found that if there were already inequities in the school, including, say, gender dynamics, and if those were not addressed before the crisis hit, the introduction of education technology risks further deepening the disparities in education. And I would just say that's not just the case for education, it's also for introducing systems into an organization. If you haven't figured out how to make your organization work well, this will just make it worse. But in Papua New Guinea, for example, low teacher digital literacy created challenges in the rollout and accessibility of ICT-based interventions. Meanwhile, some of the most successful interventions in lower income contexts were multimodal learning solutions that combined low-tech solutions, including radios, SMS, messaging, and television. So, for example, in Somaliland, solar-powered radios were distributed to remote areas where regular TV and radio program coverage did not reach. The radios had memory cards with primary education subjects recorded on them. The intervention was deemed quite effective in helping those children learn in those remote areas. And it'd be no surprise to anybody here that teachers are critical, but often overlooked, key to success. GPE partner countries encountered challenges training teachers in the use of distance learning methods and in providing teaching materials to support distance learning. Our conclusion is that training on distance learning methods needs to happen well in advance of the crisis beginning. So when we think about climate change, we need to be starting now or as soon as we can to ensure that as the technology is introduced, we're also making sure that we're looking at how this is going to work when the crisis hits. So when we, so let me just pause with that and end with saying, so we've used the findings from the COVID evaluation and hearing from other partners to start to build an emerging framework for how we should be looking at national systems and how we can support that technology. So it has over 6 different dimensions to unlock sustainable, equitable digital transformation at scale. So let me stop there.
Thank you so much, Charles. So we've heard really exciting things. We've heard great innovation at the country level. We've heard about innovative solutions from the private sector. We've heard about some of the challenges of implementing these solutions at a country level in low resource context. So thinking ahead, really, when you put these perspectives together and you think about the power of technology to build resilience, to bring these opportunities to children, what concrete actions do we need to take to drive change? This is going to be a short round, so please keep your responses short. Starting with you, Salha.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, I would like to suggest that we should invest in advancement of technology. Infrastructures in our schools should be, the connectivity. Like, the connectivity is very important. Like, we need to invest in digital infrastructure development in our schools so that we can widely spread that internet access, but also to post the hardwares, like the digital hardwares, so that they can be accessible. Like right now, we might be speaking about integrating technology into maybe curriculum or advancing technology in our education sector. But if we have the same teachers who have just studied in the same way of studying about computer through the blackboard, we are still in the same situation. We are not moving forward. So we also need to capacitate the teachers as well, so that they'll be able to train or teach these kids about this technology issue, but also so they can be able to adapt on how to use those technology when we have crisis. On the other hand, we need to invest and more in innovating more digital content and platforms. For example, in Tanzania, we have a couple of youth who have initiated apps, education apps. Like we have Shule Direct, we have Silabu, Mtabe, My Education, My Elimu. They all have created those apps that are accessible in App Store and Play Store for kids to access education. To be able to learn when they are even at home. The same way as we have seen the Baby Shark in YouTube, the Coco Melon. That kind of content should be more produced, and they should be based on our curriculum and our topics that are taught in schools. So maybe we can have a lot of these in YouTube, but they are based in our topics in schools or our modules in schools. So everyone can access wherever they are, whatever the situation. But another thing that we can also do is we should always ensure that this technology is suited according to the environment. Like there are places, as I said before, during COVID, we tried our best to use the technology. Like the Tanzanian Institute of Education tried to have sessions through televisions, but there are very few people who are accessing television in Tanzania. Majority do not have access to television. So the technology that we are going to pose, it should also be match with the context, but also the content that is produced should also be matched with the language of that area. So if we are producing like this content for kids to learn even during the crisis, it should also go hand in hand with the language. Like I've seen the, where is it, madam? Yes, the Ubongo. This is building brains, building change. This is accessible. This is a TV program, actually. It is accessible in Eastern Africa and Malawi as well. So it's a program that kids are learning through television, edutainment programs, but they are in different languages. They are in Swahili. So in Tanzania, Kenya, our kids are learning through the television. But also they are in English, they are in Chichewa, in other languages. So we can also think beyond on having on leveraging the issue of language when we are producing this content that can fit our students when they have to use these platforms. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Salha. So we have about 1 minute for responses at this point. Please, Minister, over to you.
I know that one was meant for me, so I'll rush through.
Not at all. Everybody.
So we'll make sure we use evidence to design effective national scale programs for everyone. Make sure the EdTech has value for money, and this requires working together and embedding research in pilots as well as scaling up programs as much as possible. Let us also promote digital public goods rather than more business. I'm looking at the Microsoft. BIFIT is following this model, actually, and it's based on 8 years of solid research. And it will cover all public schools in Malawi in 6 years, we hope, we pray. I wish it would only cover a year or 2 years, but that's the reality of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Minister.
Well, I think in a couple sentences, I think with the goal of reaching the most marginalized, or every child with a focus on the most marginalized backwards, we have to throw a lot of different digital tools at every context. As the diversity increases in a country, you need even more diverse tools, some of which have been shared. I think that's the number one lesson that we're all learning over and over, and I think it, again, requires leadership and commitment for us to address that.
Thank you. Is this working? So as we look into the future, there's a lot of technology that we're developing. One of the examples is an AI tutor that we're developing with the Ministry of Education here in the UAE. And that is an online tutor for students that every student can ask questions and then they get the answers. They can even play a game with the tutor where the tutor can, quiz them. So it's actually more interactive. It fits the way that every student learns. And then it's not only for marginalized students, but also for students with learning disabilities. Every student learns in a different way. So as we look into the future, we're trying to push the technology in many ways. We get the question a lot about the role of the teacher and how that evolves. And actually, we see the role of the teacher becoming more and more important. So as we use technology to save teachers' time, now teachers can actually focus on the right things so that they educate students better.
Thank you.
Great. Just a couple of things I jotted down while everyone was talking. First, access matters. So for technology to provide resilience to education systems, they need to be connected. So governments have to build that infrastructure out, the technological infrastructure to connect young people, to connect schools, to connect children before the crisis hits. Secondly, to build on a point you just made. I think a lot of people, technotopians, think that somehow technology is going to replace teachers. That's not what's going to happen. In fact, technology is just going to make teachers so much more important and so much better with AI tutors. So let's think about technology as a support for teachers, not as a replacement for teachers. And then finally, I'm going to second the minister's call on our, sorry, you're getting all the heat here as the only private sector person on the panel. But one of the things that Generation Unlimited has been doing is calling on the private sector to take their, what we call their content, their training, they have world-class training content. They train all of their employees in the latest stuff. But it all sits behind a corporate firewall. And so we are calling, and you mentioned digital public goods, on the private sector to take as much content as they can from behind their corporate firewall. This is world-class training and skilling out in front and make it available as a digital public good, at least to young people in most marginalized communities.
Can I answer that?
It's going to be announced.
5-word answer.
We actually have it. It's called learn.microsoft.com, where we have courses available for all our technology and also maybe some non-technology related topics.
For free. Fantastic.
And it's for free for everyone.
Here.
All right, over to Charles.
Okay, so clearly there's a lot of interest in technology, but we're also hearing from governments around the world is, where do we begin? What works? How do we design this thing? They're getting bombarded by great offers, not just from Microsoft, but from donors and multilaterals, and everybody has the solution. And you're the Minister of Education, you know better than I, but you say, what do I do? Which one do I pick? And the wrong choice could mean a huge waste of money and time and the lost learning that you should have been achieving in that time. So GPE is launching a new initiative. It's a technology technology for education initiative to provide technical advice to governments to help them think through the choices and how they should be thinking about their education system. What is the technology that's going to help them break through the bottlenecks to transform their education systems? Now, this could be the technology side, but it also could be advice on how do you procure a IT system. And so that's part of what we're looking at. But we're not just doing it, say, out of the Secretariat. We are drawing on our partnership. We have expertise across this partnership from multilateral organizations like UNICEF and GenU, but also GIGA, but also from the private sector and from countries like Estonia and South Korea that have gone through this process already, that this is a chance to bring those lessons in so countries have a chance to look at what will work in their context and maybe even co-create solutions that meet their needs. So watch this space. We'll be putting out more on this in the coming weeks. We have put out a request for expressions of interest to our grant agents so that they can, if they can build consortia to work with folks. So again, watch this space. We're looking to do more. And finally, just I should make sure I say there are a lot of other initiatives out there in technology. We're trying to not duplicate those, but actually help to work to bring them together, bridge them, and to advise governments on where to look for all the solutions. So let me stop there.
Thank you, Charles. I wish we could go on for another hour, but we cannot. We have places to be, such as the rewirEd closing. So I really want to thank all of you for this really insightful and dynamic discussion and for bringing this diverse range of perspectives to the table. So just a few points I wanted to highlight that I picked up is really the importance of accessibility, multimodal approaches with a mix of solutions where the content and the solution itself is context specific, and then also having the right teacher support in place. So I'm taking that away personally. So the conversation doesn't end here. So let's continue it, offline and in the hallways, wherever it may be. But I actually want to end with you. You said something really, really cool at the beginning of this session, which is that there is no educational advancement in the face of climate change without technology. I think that's a really powerful thing, and thank you everybody again, and thanks to our audience. Yeah.